coming to you from Steve's studio in Apocalypse, New York. It's Nothing Ventured, Nothing Gained. I'm your host with your most, your DM Jared, and today I'm joined by Steve.
Yo.
So tonight, or today, whenever you're listening to us, we are actually doing a deep dive, a class dive on the Magus. Now, the Magus is not out. If you're listening to this in the future, I think after PaizoCon, the new book should be out, which will have the Magus in it. If you're listening to us anytime before then, we're currently talking about the playtest. So don't take this as the gospel's truth. Take this as a grain of salt. So why do I have Steve here for the deep dive? Well, Steve's here because Steve is currently playing the Magus playtest in our Agents of Edgewatch. He's currently playing a police officer, a town guard, and hobgoblin who is a Magus. He has the Magus background, and he took if you're playing Agents of Edgewatch, I highly suggest this. I said it in my reviews. You should always take the backgrounds for the campaign, especially in this one, because you are guard and you get a lot of special things. You are not a token guard. You are a
learned guard, I think.
Learned
is what
guard.
It's
so
called.
You come from like the mage schools, because there is a mage school in Absalon. Steve, why don't you tell us a little bit? So first off, did you ever play the Magus from Pathfinder First Edition?
Yeah, I played, and actually in Pathfinder Society, I had played a Magus. We were actually playing a special campaign for Society, and that's when I first saw Magus as a bad guy, and I'm like, that's got to be something I'm playing in the future.
Interesting. He was the Dampier, right? He's a Dampier?
Mine was an elf.
No, I mean the iconic. He's a Dampier, I believe. He's a bad guy.
I actually never even looked at he just looks iconic. Elvish.
I think he's a half elf Dampier. They picked all the fancy classes and just merged them into one. So why don't you tell us what was like a brief overview of the Magus from First Edition, so that when we talk about Second Edition, our listeners or viewers, if you're watching us, can kind of understand what the differences are here.
The bare bones 5-second answer is you mix magic with melee. You're basically half fighter, half wizard. The slightly longer version is you're actually casting magic through your weapon of choice. So you used to have, so you get a special move, almost like Flurry of Blows from monks, but you get to attack a whole bunch with your weapon, and then you also get to cast a free spell, and I think at slightly higher levels, you actually hit with your sword, and it deals the magic through it.
Oh, okay. Now, so if you're only listening to this and you've never played First Edition, what I'm about to say is going to confuse you. It's okay. Steve will answer it and be 100%. He'll give you kind of like the long version. So, did the Magus in First Edition have full BAB?
No, kind of. This is the weird thing. So they had actually what's called 3/4 or the Rogue's attack bonus tree. So the fighters have the best attack, and other classes, the wizards and spellcasters only have the worst attack, and then there are certain classes like monk and rogue, they kind of fell in the middle, and that's where the Magus kind of fell into. Where they made up ground was they got a free ability that a certain number of times per day they could charge their weapon, and it becomes magical for free for a short period of time.
That's really awesome, because magical weapons in First Edition Pathfinder and in Second Edition Pathfinder are very powerful. So
almost like a necessity in First Edition.
Yeah. So with that out the way, what does the Magus playtest look like for Second Edition? So if you're listening, we're now back to Second Edition, so we should make a lot of way more sense. And when I said BAB, it was base attack bonus. It was kind of a 3-5 early Pathfinder system.
That was what his proficiency became. That wasn't a thing back in First Edition.
No. So in Second Edition, the Magus now, similar to the First Edition, you hit, you do magic. Now, if I was to build a sorcerer fighter, right? Obviously, you could go any which way with that. But let's say I was going to make a sorcerer, right? And that I wanted to give them a little bit oomph and get some martial abilities in there, right? Why would I play the Magus and not that? What makes the Magus special? What is its...
The difference between playing a either a fighter or another martial class that dedicates into a spellcaster class, or a spellcaster that dedicates into a martial class, is the difference is you get increases to your weapon to hit and your magic to hit at the same time. You don't have to dedicate to get that. So normally if I'm playing a fighter, I start an expert attack with most weapons, and I don't get spell attack. So I have to dedicate into wizard or sorcerer, or take your pick of spellcaster class to get the trained in their spell DC and their spell attack. Yes. And then as I take more feats, I get expert and master is the highest you can get through dedication. So this gives it to you without having to take feats for it.
Without having to jump through hoops.
Yeah. So you don't have to waste class feats to get the whichever one you're missing. So if you're missing your weapon to hit, or you're missing your spell to hit and spell DC, you'd have to take dedication feats to make up that ground. You don't have to do that here, so you can take other feats.
So the Magus is a bit of a hybrid between a fighter and a martial class.
A fighter and a wizard.
Fighter and a wizard, arcane caster, right? They can only cast arcane.
Yeah, they can only cast arcane, and they're prepared casters, so that's very much akin to wizard.
Oh, so I have to study my spell book and stuff like that.
You get a spell book for free. It's not like the witch, because you don't have you can get a familiar, but it's not an ingrained part of your class.
Got it.
So in a way, it's very much that's very much akin to the first edition, where it was half fighter, half wizard.
Okay. And now, talking on that, what is their special ability that you get at level 1? Because this was the weird thing for me when I was looking at the Magus. Other classes, like let's say you talk about the cleric, right? So the cleric can either become a battle cleric, or a war priest, or just a
cloister cleric.
A cloister cleric, sorry. So let's say I choose battle cleric. I still have spells, and I still get my focus point and stuff like that, but I get my armor. This class was, as a wizard, I get spells, I get my focus point. This was really, I felt they kind of like reached out and grabbed like 3 different things and just threw it all in at level 1. And I feel like this might be like a new player to 2nd edition. And obviously do whatever you want. Again, this is not gospel. I feel like this is made more for like an experienced player versus a new player.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing. This is not for beginners. It's involved, because not only do you have to know how attacking works, and you have to know what things your weapon does. Now you have to know. I mean, it's not that wizards and sorcerers don't use weapons, but in general, it's not their bread and butter.
Yeah.
So now you have to not only know how weapons work, you have to know. So you're wearing armor. Yet again, most spellcasters are not trained in armor. No. So you have to learn how about armor. You also have to learn how about focus spells and spellcasting. And the way the spellcaster works here is different than every other class except for the summoner.
So what makes it different?
So as any spellcaster up until this point, you get your cantrips and your first level spells at first level. As you gain levels, you start gaining more powerful spells. You don't actually lose spells over time.
Yeah.
So if I get 3 first level spells I can cast per day, and then I get access to 2nd level spells, I still have those 3 first level spells I can cast, plus the new ones I just got.
Okay.
The way the Magus functions is you only ever get your 2 highest spell slots. So once I have first level spells and 2nd level spells. So once I'm able to cast 3rd level spells, I lose the ability to cast first level spells.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's a question, right? If I'm looking at the playtest material, right, and I'm deciding to play this in the campaign, like you are, did they speak about dedications, or like if you're dedicating another class, do they speak about?
No, I don't think they talked about dedications. Let me take a quick scan here.
Obviously, this is a playtest, so we are not looking at the full material. And when we did the playtest for the investigator, the oracle, and the witch, and the Swashbuckler, I don't think they really spoke about the
No,
dedications
they
in
didn't
that
talk about
either. They
dedicating
didn't really-
into or from
Yeah.
this class. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're starting with this class, you're dedicating to other classes, just using the dedication rules.
Just use flat.
Yeah,
out
just
use
using the dedication. So if I want to use this and then dedicate it to cleric, I
Mhm.
can dedicate it to cleric, just like using the regular dedication rules. But there's no dedication
different.
feats in the playtest.
You're not looking to do, like it's nothing different. Okay, no, I just wanted to like double check because I was like, oh wait, we never spoke about this as a GM as to a player that you might say, hey man, I want to dedicate here. I'd be like, oh shit, like how do I do this?
That I think that's actually quite easy. So if you're dedicating into
Mhm.
someone who doesn't cast spells, say like champion or
Barbarian
monk,
or
right?
whatever,
That's pretty easy because you just get what the dedication tells you to get. But the
Mhm.
same thing is, even if I'm dedicating into cleric, I
Mhm.
just get what the dedication gives me. So if I get extra spell slots for being a cleric,
Yeah.
I can then use my cleric spells and the cleric spell slots. And I have to look at the rules on like mixing spells. It's probably some in the
Yeah.
core rulebook, but I've never looked into.
We've never actually had that come up. So
yeah,
for
but
us,
there's probably rules in the core
there's
rulebook
probably
for that.
rules. Yeah, I would guarantee there are rules for that. Okay, so as a player, how do you feel about this class?
It's interesting. I
Mhm.
don't think it's a fully fledged idea yet. This is
As a playtest is never a fully
Oh,
fledged
no,
idea.
true. But when we played, and I ran that one adventure when we played the playtest for the 4 playtest characters for the first place. So it was the Swashbuckler, the Oracle, the Witch, and the Investigator.
That's good. Yep.
2 of those classes were pretty fleshed out. Right.
Yes,
the
I do have
Swashbuckler
to-
was, I would say 80% there.
Oh yeah.
And I think that the
Oracle was there.
Oracle
at,
was like
almost
70% there.
Yeah.
And the Witch and the Swashbuckler and the Investigator took a lot. Like when you looked at you compared the
Mhm.
playtest versus the actual release product, there was significant differences.
Oh yeah.
And good differences, but significant differences. Like it didn't really recognize some of the things that it could do.
Yeah, they did get rid of a lot of
And they changed
things.
stuff around.
Yeah, they moved a few things around, which definitely made the class better. But that's the investigator class.
So,
not the-
so for Magus, this looks and feels like one of the ones that wasn't as fleshed out as,
Mhm.
you know, when we looked at the Witch and the Investigator, and you saw inherent weaknesses or inherent things that I'm like, wait a minute, why does it say that or this? This doesn't make
Mhm.
sense, or this is really bad for. You know, if I have this detriment, I'd rather just play another class, right?
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
the Investigator had a hard issue of combat. It just couldn't really deal with combat in the beginning.
Mhm.
This is very much similar because I would say the one weakness that the Magus has is it
Mhm.
asks you to cast spells and melee, and it doesn't give you too much benefit for doing it.
what do you mean?
And so, going to slightly throw back to first edition here. The benefit of using weapon plus magic.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 benefits were you get crit range of your weapon. So if you crit with your weapon, you crit with your spell.
Yep. Okay.
So the thing with first edition is enhancing your crit range was important if you're going that route.
Yeah.
The second thing is it gave you an ability to do something you normally couldn't do. Right? So
Mhm.
normally I couldn't cast a spell and then attack a whole bunch.
No.
And that's what it gave you. It gave you the ability to do that.
Mhm.
And this way, action economy, obviously, in second edition is kind of important.
Very
This
much so,
doesn't give you much action. It gives a little bit of action economy if you pick one specific route.
Okay.
So the way they broke this up is when you first become a Magus, you pick.
You pick your like
Oh, this,
school
yeah, it's called the Magus synthesis, which basically is your style of combat.
Yeah.
This is kind of like how you fight.
Yeah.
So you have 3 options. You have using a one-handed weapon,
Mhm.
using a two-handed weapon, which I think is a cool idea,
That's really
or
cool.
using a ranged weapon. So,
which is interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
so preface this is normally when you're using the special move of, it's called striking spell.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go into it. It's a giant wall of text. But
Yeah.
basically it says you get to charge your weapon or part of yourself with the spell, and then you hit with that weapon or like your fist or whatever, and you hit with both the magic and the melee.
Okay.
It's like the core mechanic of the class.
It's what makes a Magus a Magus.
Yes. So the cool thing about using ranged weapons is normally it states you can't use the ranged weapon. You have to use a melee weapon.
Yeah, it says you have to make a melee strike.
So using it's called Shooting Star, lets you break that rule. It lets you says you can use a spell with your weapon.
Cool.
It has a pretty major detriment. Basically, to the point, it's almost like, why would you use this?
Really? What's the detriment?
The detriment is you can never exceed the range of the spell. So if I'm using a touch spell, I can never use a touch spell with this because I'm not touching you. I'm using a ranged weapon.
Yeah. So if you're shooting a longbow.
Exactly. Right. So if I just choose to use a longbow, if I choose to use javelins, or I choose to use a crossbow, or even shurikens, it's like if the spell has 30 feet and I hit you 35 feet away, I can't use the spell. So what
rough.
benefit am I gaining by using it? I could just fire the spell instead. So it didn't. I mean, you're getting some sort of benefit from striking spell. So basically, if you crit with your spell, if you crit with your attack, then your spell gains an increase in some way.
Got it.
Not going to go through, like I said, not going to go through crunchy rules details, but in essence, critting with your weapon enhances your spell.
Got it.
So it's obviously if you crit, it's great. But yet again, in Pathfinder, the second edition, critting is more of like a luck of the dice thing, or fighting weaker things. Yeah, there's not as much number bonuses as it was in first edition. So that's, I mean, that's really not. That's true in a way. So that's my major detriment of I see of like, why would I pick that when I can already use the spell at range anyway? Or if I can't use it at range, I can't use the spell with the. Yeah, why? So it's like it just seems like a weird thing. And like I said, in my opinion, what I would do is I wouldn't make it unlimited. Like if I like my bow was 120 feet or something stupid. I wouldn't say touch spells can go that far, but I would at least give them an increase in range. You know, or saying, okay, well, touch spell, like almost like you give them the extend spell meta magic feat. So touch spells become 30 feet. Okay. Like that would be something that I would change, because at the moment, there's no point in picking that one over something else, because I'm still going to have to walk up and hit something, or I'm still firing at range. Yeah. So I could just shoot my bow and then fire a spell. Yeah, why do anything different? The only thing it does is it gets rid of map. But you're still picking long range spells at that point. Yeah. I feel that's a slight detriment on that one. Okay. We're going to skip slide casting because it's the best one. We're just going to go over that one last.
It's just the best one.
It's just, sorry. It's the way they balanced these. They didn't really make these three things even. Okay. The other one, which I think is the coolest of the three, is using a two-handed weapon, which is normally not a thing you can do.
That actually sounds really cool. Like,
so it's called Sustaining Steel. And the interesting thing is when you use the charging your weapon with magic, when you use a two-hander, you gain temporary hit points. Yes. And you gain temporary hit points equal to the level of the spell. So when you're using cantrips, they level to half your level. So if I'm 10th level and I cast a cantrip, I'm going to get 5 hit points. 5 temporary hit points, which is good. Pretty powerful. If I use a spell slot, so first level or second level or third, if I use any spell slot, so it says you gain twice the spell's level. So if I use a third level spell slot, I'm going to get 6 hit points. So if I use the 9th level spell slot, I'm going to get 18 hit points.
Which isn't bad.
Yeah. One thing that I have issue with this one is occasionally you're going to need a free hand to cast the magic.
Yeah, that's
So you're having to have to hit okay, well, I have 2 hands on my weapon, so I get a free hand. I get to let go of my weapon with the one hand, cast the magic, spend an action to put my hand back. That's my turn. Yeah. Now I have to move to next to my opponent. Next turn, I got to move next to my opponent and hope that they're in range for me to move to and hit them. Yeah. And it just adds this extra clunky aspect of doing the temporary hit points.
So it's not as like thematic.
Like getting in the fight is hard because you're having to spend these actions. Now, like you said, sometimes there are one action focus spells you can use. There are certain spells you can use. They're rare, but there's certain spells you can use that are one action. Yeah. But like I said, most of the spells you're going to be using have to use, and this is a detriment that I feel that they lost from first edition, which I actually liked using.
Mm-hmm.
The original thing didn't require you to use the spell attack, because remember, like Magus the first level didn't have the ability to charge the weapon. That was something they got later on, like second or third or fourth level.
Yeah.
So, but you could still use this kind of flurry of blows mechanic to cast magic and melee.
Yeah.
So the cool thing is there was times where I would just cast a spell and then full attack somebody, but it was just something that, like, I was trying to stop somebody, so I would cast web in the doorway so they couldn't get out, and then I would fight somebody. So I wasn't actually charging my weapon. In this, you have to have something that targets an object or a person. So there's certain spells you just can't use with it in the newer version.
So I can't drop like fireball. Like I can't channel fireball into my.
I guess you could you have to target an object. I'm not sure if it can target an object.
Fireball can't.
Oh, it doesn't
Fireball.
have a target?
It's like an AoE. Like shatter, right? Like I can't cast shatter in my weapon.
It'd blow up.
Yeah, I blow my weapon up. There you go. I fixed it.
But there are certain spells that I'm like, oh man, because I remember doing this like weird like full attack and then casting a spell that wasn't necessarily an attack spell.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I liked about Magus was it wasn't just all about. I mean, that was a big part of it, is attacking with magic.
Yeah.
But there was other part where you got access to some spells faster than a wizard did.
Ooh.
But you got in the old version, you got less. You didn't get high level spells. You stopped at 6th level. You didn't get any higher level than that. But what you did is you got some spells faster, which like a lot of the spells you got faster were battlefield manipulation stuff, where I could affect the ground, or I can, like I said, do web and all these crazy things.
That was powerful.
I feel like that was lost a little bit here. It was they're really focusing on the attacking part. And don't get me wrong, that's fun. But also it's just like the 3 action system lets you do stuff that's not always attacking. I feel like they could have added in something that it's not always about blowing something up.
Like I try to get my players to do this all the time. It's like disarm and grapple and shove and trip. Those are great things, and they do consume map, but they also give you something to do that isn't just I swing on the enemy. It's you can think tactically and kind of make it for your friends also. Like, oh, I know that I might not be the biggest hitter, but the barbarian can, so maybe I should shove or trip them. Like, because like the spells say, like you have to make an attack with it. So I can't cast, I don't know, let's say acid splash, right? Because that's a single target thing. I can't cast acid splash and then shove someone with my hands, or like elbow check them and have the spell pop off. I have to make a weapon attack.
Oh, with the current rules? Yeah, so you would actually cast the acid splash first into your weapon and then hit them, and they would get hit by the weapon and the acid splash at the same time.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is there's no way for me to like cast and then do something else, because then I kind of waste my turn. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, so the way that this, they don't explicitly state this in the rules, but the way this is kind of designed is you have one turn that you build yourself up and you're ready to do damage, and the next turn you should be in a position to do the damage.
To just pop.
So the rules in the striking spell state that the charge lasts until the end of your next turn. So you have a turn to do stuff, but I'm just looking at all the other classes in second edition, and no class is asked to wait a turn to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And that's the slightly irritating part of it, is that I understand they don't want to make it too overpowered. But at the other side is that a barbarian can rage, run into combat, and hit something. Monk can run into combat and flurry of blows. Like almost everyone can, or a wizard can cast a lightning bolt, like or that long range spell, and then do something else or move, whatever. And it's like the Magus like builds up, like, okay, I'm charged up. And it's kind of a big indication to everyone to move away from you. So make you eat up movement to get to them.
To go and find it.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, like I said, we're gonna go over the third one, which is the one that almost kind of lets you do it.
Okay, so let's go over that. Why?
The third one is slide casting, and this one requires you to use a single-handed weapon Doesn't have to be finesse or agile or anything like that, like the rogues would have to use. But just any one-handed weapon that your other hand is free.
Fair enough.
So you cast a spell that qualifies for the striking spell. So it has to be able to be used for that. And then you either get a free stride or step. So I can either say if I'm in trouble and I need to step away, so I get to step away so I don't get attacked if a monster has attack of opportunity, or I get to move my full movement. So I use say it's a 2-action spell. So 2-action spell, I charged up my weapon, I can then get to move my full movement. And now that could put me next to the enemy. Then I can hit them for free if I'm in range, or I can still wait, or I can still do something else. So then the next turn I could do something, or I can hit them and then do my free, do my spell. So I hit them and unloaded this spell into them. And then I can charge up another spell and step away for free. And do something else.
Okay.
So that one gives you the ability to do it. It almost feels like that's your only choice. So the hit point one is kind of interesting. I just don't think the hit points are enough.
Yeah, you're definitely not getting enough hit points to stay in combat.
So if you're going to build a Magus, you get either strength. Your key ability is either strength or dex. So you pick one of the two. And so if you pick strength, you're not going to have a high AC, which means you have to wear medium armor, which in essence gets you almost about the same AC as, but you only get one skill and you get no reflex additions because, reflex is dex. So if I'm picking strength over dex, so it should be strength int.
Yep.
Strength intelligence. So then I would have very little or only a moderately decent reflex plus because I'd have a lower dex modifier.
Dex modifier, yeah.
Right now what I'm playing is a high dexterity, which gets me dexterity and intelligence, and it adds to 3 skills, which is thievery, stealth, and acrobatics. And you get a decent reflex save. But the detriment is now you can't do athletics very well, so you can't do those interesting trip and shove moves. Yeah,
you're kind of yeah.
And the thing is, last campaign, if you guys haven't watched last campaign, I played a very strength focused character. So I'll play the dex focused, and I think a lot of us went dex focused, and nobody played a strength character. So I might have to talk to Jared and see if I can switch to a strength character just to have an upfront character.
No,
you must learn. Everyone's stuck.
You must learn from your mistakes. I'll bind you to this.
Because in essence, the Magus is a very what was called an alpha strike character. I'm loading all of my damage in one hit, so I'm not really there to stand toe to toe with the big bad guy and trade hits. I only have a D8 hit point, so I'm on the lower end of how much health I have, and I also don't have many moves that let me hit multiple times. Like you said, you have the monk who's got flurry blows. You have the ranger and the fighter who have variations on attacking twice with 1 action or 2 actions.
Yeah, the
Magus doesn't really have any of that. It's really like load up this 1 hit, and it's going to do a whole bunch if I hit you.
Yeah.
So it's got its pluses and minuses. It's a very much like it's rogue. Rogue is I hit you once and you take a bunch of damage.
Yeah, like Jeff. Like whenever Jeff would do something, it would be a ton of damage, and then I'd be like, "All right, I hit you back," and he's like, "Well, I'm dead." Yeah,
this just does damage in a different way with magic, and obviously you always have cantrips that you can use. And like I said, it avoids map, which is even more indication that you shouldn't attack again. And not that you can't, but you're not. There's the second hit is not going to do much damage. It's going to do D6, or it's going to do D8 if you have, happen to have a D8. But yet again, if I was, and that's where my thinking went a little awry. I took finesse and agile weapons in the thought that I'd be attacking multiple times, not realizing that, oh, wait a minute, it's almost the same as if I had high strength and added the damage versus swinging twice and potentially missing the second hit. So mathematically, strength is slightly more reliable. But dexterity gets you more options with skills. You get 3 skills versus 1. You get a higher reflex save. So that's an option that you have to decide on. Do you want more damage and less options, but more combat options through athletics.
Oh.
So that's it's a choice. I'm not saying one is stronger than the other. It's really how you want to play the character.
I mean, there is always the opportunity to kind of play the class with a high dex to crit fish, right? So you're rolling with such a high 2 hit that you're hoping to crit to kind of supersede the amount of damage you're not doing regularly.
Yes, but then if you did the same thing with strength, you'd get that plus extra damage. So if I had an 18 strength versus an 18 dex, and we're going to have the same rate of crit hitting on the first hit, let's just assume we're talking about the first hit.
Yeah.
So on the strength and the dex, I have the same rate, and on the strength, I'm going to add 8 damage instead of 0 damage or 1 damage.
2, whatever it is.
So in essence, I can add 4 plus 4 damage at first level versus maybe like plus 1, which is what I have right now. I think I have a plus 1. So you're adding 2 damage versus 8, and you have the same rate of crit hitting somebody.
That's interesting, because then you would you're looking at it in the sense of like, oh, I shouldn't. That's interesting, because
yet again, what you're sacrificing damage and gaining reflex save and 3 skills if you pick those 3 skills. Yeah, like my character has no desire to pick thievery.
No, yeah.
So I'm only really using 2 of the 3 skills. So stealth and acrobatics, which lets me kind of tumble around and do weird stuff.
Which isn't bad.
True, and having my reflex save is amazing. It's like higher than any save I have, and even though the Magus has expert, fort, and will, I have a higher reflex save because of it. That there's good inside. I'm not saying like, oh, you must pick strength because dex doesn't work. It's just in our group at the moment, we're short on damage.
Is that a shot at Copper because he is short? If you don't listen to our podcast, please listen, or our live stream. Every Wednesday at about 8 p.m, give or take.
So yeah, it's really on how you want to play it. You can't play the strength based, you can't play the dex based. I would like to see more variation on the 2. Like there was I think it's fighter where you pick strength or dex, and that gives you a different skill. Like if you pick dex, you're gonna learn acrobatics. If you pick strength, you're gonna learn athletics.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always try to balance myself a little bit here and there, but you're right. That's kind of how they work it now. It's
because in the old version, you got light and medium armor, but obviously if you're picking strength, you would go heavy armor, and if you picked dexterity, you didn't really wear heavy armor because it would hurt your dex.
Yeah. And
the way that armor works in this game, that doesn't matter, because it used to matter because of the thing called touch AC, but that got removed in 2nd edition. So AC is AC regardless of where you're getting it from.
Yeah.
Unless a rust monster eats your armor.
Then you're running because you're out of.
Yeah.
Then it's an oh shit moment. Then it's what we like to say is a teachable moment. Don't send the paladin to fight the rust monster.
Yeah.
That's a poor plan. You've chosen poorly. So, Steve, if you were to kind of, if Paizo came to you and said, hey, listen, we're struggling. We want to build the Magus, but we don't know where we're going with it. How would you build the Magus? How would you like to see the Magus built? What would you kind of focus on? Where would you take this class and stuff like that?
Well, one thing that they started with this concept, and I think they're going to magnify this concept later, but is making the combat styles much more unique than they are.
Okay.
Right. So I will say this: there's a feat at first level called Arcane Fists, and all you have to know is it makes casting a spell into your body or your hands or any part of your body, almost like a monk. It makes that better.
Okay.
Right? So instead of it, so it increases the damage you do with just punching somebody. It gives you ways to avoid negatives when you're trying to not kill somebody. It's a really cool feat at first level.
Okay.
That shouldn't be a feat. That should be one of the 4 combat styles. Right. So you have unarmed, one-handed, two-handed, ranged. So 4 combat styles. The unarmed should have this feat. Should be the special ability of the unarmed style. If you want to go unarmed, that's to be the benefit.
I see what you're saying. So instead of having to, when you choose the unarmed thing, you just automatically get this tack.
That should be the benefit of picking unarmed versus the other ones.
Okay, got it.
The slide casting, I think, is I think it balances that it's going to be where you get the free movement. That's really solid.
Yeah, and especially if you pick like an elf who can start with 30
foot, and then you pick the feat that makes 35 movement. Yeah, or you can pick the feat that lets you, when you step, you could move 10 feet. Yeah, so all that stuff we kind of couple on itself, and that would be really, and it's really good. It's really powerful, considering what the Magus has to do to get in combat. Yeah. The range one, as we discussed before, my opinion about it is it should increase the base spell range when you're using a 3 weapon, so it's not limiting you out of a whole bunch of spells. Yeah, because right now all the touch spells are basically unusable to you unless you're casting it raw. Yeah, because you're not able to throw anything. Yeah, like, you can't reach that far because they're touch spells. Yeah, they should get some sort of word verbiage, or maybe they grant the extend spell meta magic feat for free when you cast it, into your weapon. Like you automatically get that. Yeah, so it's built in. There's rules already there for it. Instead of, you don't have to spend an action, but you using your special, I charge up my bow. Yeah. You grant that to the spell, so now it has whatever range it has when you throw it in there. Yeah. Okay. And then the 2-handed one, I think they're going in the right direction. Where with temporary hit points, it just needs to be tweaked a bit more. Needs to be tweaked. So maybe more hit points, or maybe you have to like burn a spell slot, and then that gets you more like you. I see where they're going. I feel like it does get better. It is a feat, you can make it better, but that's down the road. Yeah. You're looking at it from the base of like, hey, we're starting at level 1. How can I play this at level 1? Yeah, because. And why should I play this? Like, you're getting 1 hit point or 2, and in essence, you're getting it every turn. If you're getting it every other turn. So if you're comparing it to like a barbarian's getting like 3 or 4 at first level. So you don't want to outclass them. But I think that one needs work. And I'm not sure exactly how I would do it, or make it to where if you're casting a spell that qualifies, you immediately can grab your weapon again. So it frees up that action, and you still get the temporary hit points. You do the temporary hit points, and then you literally can grab the weapon for free. Or like something I would give it is like, hey, you kind of burn like a spell slot, and like you kind of just naturally burn it. Maybe you don't have to release your hands. Like you. Like as long like you automatically can just do it. It still eats the actions, but you just like burn it up inside of you. Yeah, so you wouldn't have to release your weapon and cast it. Yeah, and then you could keep the temporary hit points low to balance that. But you're getting a free action, which is what slide casting gives you, is basically a free action to move. Which kind of balances it with the slide casting. Yeah. So it gives you that like option to say like, oh, I want to do this and this. Yeah, and you don't need that for the unarmed. You're getting more damage by increasing your die size. And you don't need that for range because I'm already far away. I'm going to hit you. Exactly. I'm going to hit you from range. I don't need to have an extra move to get in range because I'm getting the safety of being out of range. Yeah. And maybe that could be your focus spell is you do that, and for the next minute, that happens. Maybe tying the focus spells to the class, to the type of Magus you're building. So the 2-weapon Magus, that's your focus spell. So you have to follow this general Magus like paper, but then you use your focus spell to now get that free action. You know what I mean? Okay. So the interesting thing so far that how they built, they call them battle spells for the Magus, is all the focus spells for Magus are called battle spells. Yeah. They're interesting spells because they're all 1 action. So they have the basic one you get is basically make whatever weapon you're holding magic.
That's cool.
So you get +1 to hit. And as you level up, and remember, focus spells are half your level. As you gain more and more levels, this spell gets better and better, where eventually it gets +2 striking, +3.
Yeah.
So, but yet again, it only costs 1 action.
Got
you get if you take the feat, you get where is it? If you take the feat, you get hasted assault, which is basically haste for 1 action, which is really good. But it's only for yourself.
But only for you.
And it also lasts only a minute.
Got
so a lot of the spell, and another improvement on the making a weapon magic is you can actually attach temporary runes to your weapon.
That's cool.
So it's cool. Yet again, they all are focus spells, so you can only cast so many of these in a day.
Per day. Yeah.
So once you run out of focus spells, you really only get 1 of these at a clip. And like I said, besides the base one, the Magus, the make your weapon magic, all of these cost feats. So
you kind of
I think they could really differentiate. Like you said, I think that having a focus spell tied to each one, I still think that needs to be some sort of base mechanic that if you don't want to cast the focus spell, it still like gives you something on how to deal your damage or how to wield your weapon.
So like I was saying, Steve, with the focus spells concept, I think Magus, well, before we go off on a tangent and stuff like that, the whole concept, the reason why I bring up focus spells is because I feel that Magus is the class to bring a class that is built around focus spells. And I think that would lend this class a little bit more juice of oomph that you were speaking about, where you don't really feel that each martial style is independent from each other. Like they're kind of just like overlapping a bit.
I think another interesting idea could be mixing the Panache Mechanic from, because remember, you have the Magus is a mix between a martial character and a magic character.
Yes.
So some aspects of the martial you could and some aspects of the magic. So you could say that the Panache Mechanic from the Swashbuckler, it basically says if you do a thing and there's a couple of things that they do, you get Panache. Panache gives you benefits. You can expend Panache to get certain feats, let you spend Panache.
Yes.
Right. They could have used a similar mechanic because, yet again, harkening back to the old Magus, they had this thing called an Arcane Pool, and it was a bunch of points that you could spend to activate certain feats. So you would get a feat that you could only use at certain times a day, because every time you used it, it costs you something. It costs you one of these points, and once you ran out of points, you had to rest, and then you got them back like spells.
Yeah.
So they could have some of these moves that are either like focus spells or even call them something different, and you say, well, the strength-based person is going to do this, and when he or she does this thing, they get a point back, or they're charged for the next whatever, and then they can burn the charge to gain some benefit. Like one of these feats, you get an ability to do bonus damage, or you get the ability to cast a spell at -1 action, or you get something that benefits you, right? But that's it's a strength-based one, has their own way of generating this pool, or whatever you want to call it. And then the Dexter-based one, they're going to be more nimble and doing other things that the strength-based character is not going to do. So they maybe have a different path, or maybe it has to do with how you're attacking or something. But they could have this mechanic to where it charges you up and you gain some sort of benefit from it. Kind of mixing the Panache idea with the magic idea. And yet again, if they're trying to harken back from the old Magus, there's precedence for this. Using, like I said, this Arcane Pool.
So that's kind of the reason why I was leaning with the focus points, is because that's very similar to an Arcane Pool, where after you rest, you kind of get them back. But the Panache is the exact same, is a very similar thing to what you're talking about, is so. But the counterbalance with that is the panache is you only have it and then you use it and then you have to get it back. So, like it's kind of a cap. It's like a strong cap. And that's my biggest concern is capping players, especially with the Magus, because the way you're playing it and the way you've kind of described your encounter with it, it kind of sounds to me that like it's not as not powerful, but you're not getting enough oomph out of the class to begin with.
And also, I will say it's when I look at the class and I look at the feat choices that I have, and yet again, I think there's many levels in Magus that feel like they're going to add more stuff.
Yeah,
and I'm like, then I start thinking,
give
like,
it to me now.
Yeah.
Nah.
And then because I feel there's some levels, I look at the two options and I go, neither one of these are for me.
They don't make sense.
They don't make sense for the character that I'm building, and there's only either two options, or maybe there's three options, but this is just not something that gels well with what I'm picking.
Yeah.
Or the idea of playing. I think the second thing is the campaign we're playing in. I had made specific decisions to not take many attack spells because of the campaign we're playing and how I wanted the character's like mindset to be. Because we are playing as guards, and even though that technically all damage is non-lethal, I still was like trying to avoid like, I'm going to do 97 points of damage to you. It's all non-lethal.
It's all non-lethal.
It's a lightning bolt directly to your brain, but you know, it's not lethal. So you'll just get knocked out. And you know, thematically, so I picked a few combat spells.
Yeah.
But I didn't go ham. I didn't go all in with combat spells. And like I said, when I played the first edition version, I didn't pick all combat spells. I had one or two that I had focused on, but I also picked a lot of these battlefield manipulation spells, which you can do with this too, but your spells per day, a lot of the battlefield manipulation spells, like things like web or glitter dust or a lot of these other like utility spells, you have to cast through your slots. They're not cantrips. So that comes at the detriment of only having a maximum of 4 non-cantrip spells a day.
Yeah.
To where your utility is very, very much limited because you feel you almost have to put combat spells there. So maybe it's the lack of options, plus some of the options don't make sense, plus the character selections of everybody, including myself.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I said, it's all like a perfect storm of.
Well, I mean, so what would you, like I said, like talking about like Paizo coming to Steve and saying, Steve, man, how do we fix this? So how do we fix this? Like, how do you see this being something where people could probably play it and enjoy it? And like, if you were to kind of throw a hot fix onto it.
Well, the first thing I would do is I would compare this to a wizard dedicated fighter or a fighter dedicated to wizard. And then look at it from that perspective and say, does the Magus do enough different from those class builds? From just a purely mechanic standpoint. RP, you could RP however you want. From a mechanics standpoint, the benefit I get from being a fighter dedicated wizard. So the two things I get right off the bat, we're talking about first level fighter. Obviously you can't dedicate first level. We're talking about, let's max it out. Everyone's 20th level.
I mean, theoretically you can dedicate it first level, but it's super confusing to
niche.
do.
But well, let's just say that we're talking about generalities at level 20.
Yes.
If I'm a fighter who's dedicated wizard, I think the dedication costs me 6 feats.
Give or take, yeah.
I think it's about 5 or 6 feats. But I get master at spell DC, and I get legendary attack. So right off the bat, I'm hitting more often. Just right out the gate. I get 9. Well, I think I get 7 spells that I get. So I get 1 first, 1 second, 1 third, all the way up to 7th.
Yes.
I don't think you get 8th and 9th. You get 8th level spells. You don't get 9th.
Yes.
So you get 8 spells. True. That's 1 at each level. So you get first, the second, third, all the way to 8. And with the Magus, you get 4 spells. You would get 2 ninth level spells and 2 8th level spell slots.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 8 spells versus 4 spells, but let's say the first 3 really don't count. Right. So the first level spell, the second level spell, and the third level spell at 20th level don't do much compared to a 9th level spell slot.
Mm-hmm.
But you're also getting a whole bunch of fighter options. Not a lot, but enough. You would be able to focus on one weapon style, which is what the Magus should be doing as well. I mean, it's yet again, where's the part fighter coming in from? At the moment, it's really only picking your combat style and like a few feats.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing I would look at is this better? And talk about from the other side, wizard into fighter.
Yeah.
Wizard dedication, you're going to get legendary spell and master attack. So you're still getting legendary somewhere.
Something's happening.
So, and with wizard dedication, you're getting ton more spells. You're getting you're getting all the way up to 9th or 10th level spells. You're getting, I think, 3. Yeah, so you get 3 spells per day at every level.
Okay.
From 1st to 9th.
Yes. And
if you take the feat, you get a 10th level slot.
Oh, wow.
So if I'm picking wizard dedicate to fighter, what I'm losing is I'm losing hit points because there's going to be D6 hit points a level instead of D8. So I go from D8 to D6.
D6s. All right.
The benefit of fighter is you're getting D10 over D8.
Yeah.
But so with fighter, you're losing a little bit of utility in magic, but you still get an 8th level spell slot and a 7th level spell slot. So you're losing a little bit in magic and you're focusing on the martial. And with wizard, you're focusing on the magic, and then you could take fighter feats and start messing with that.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. You're kind of in like a weird spot.
Yeah.
Because like you're looking at it from a kind of a perspective of like, maybe it's because of the campaign and how you built your character.
It's possible.
Or it's solely the way the current build is. And don't get me wrong, like we keep saying, this is the playtest. When I was playing the Swashbuckler, they had something in there. I don't know if it's still in. No, it's not. It's not in there. But it was something solely based on like the dwarf clan dagger. It was like you could use the clan dagger like really like it was really based on clan dagger use, and then that's not in there anymore. I think they went with they took it out and like they give you like you're better at disarming people now, not just as a dwarf, but like
but anyway,
yeah, but like in general. And they got rid of the clan dagger thing. Now, I understood why they did that because clan dagger is a very niche weapon.
Yeah.
It's specific to the dwarf or, yeah, only the dwarf. I mean, you obviously could talk to your DM about it and say like, well, my character was raised by dwarves or I found one. But to use it, it's still uncommon. So you have to be trained in it unless, again, your DM says hand wave, like, sure, knock stuff out. With that being said, I see why they got rid of that. So obviously this again rolls back to the conversation of, hey, they might just get rid of a lot of stuff that we're talking about and it's going to be fine. Like it's going to be fine. They might be working on using focus spells or linking, like I know a lot of people have the issue with the spell strike ability. And you don't really use it that often when we play. Obviously,
we haven't really gotten to too many combats. Yeah. That's the other side of it.
Again, it is the campaign, a bit of
so we completely changed like how a normal adventure would play, just because we're in the role of in the mindset of being a city guard, which eventually changes.
Well, you maintain the city guardness, but it does the avenue of how you have to deal with stuff does change. Cultists start showing up and stuff like that. Not to spoil it, but surprise, you're not playing real life simulator for too long.
So this is one of the other issues that I had with Magus. Is and this is a wizard feat as well, called Misspell Strikes. Is when you cast, and this is how people were trying to build Magus before Magus was a thing, right?
So
when you cast a spell through a spell slot, so i.e. not a cantrip, not a focus spell.
Yeah.
You can basically get damage on your attacks.
Okay.
So like your next attack, until the end of your turn, your weapon deals an extra d6 points of damage, depending on what spell you cast.
Okay.
So you have moves in here that you can, when you cast a spell, you get the said benefit. The problem is with so few spell slots, this isn't going to trigger all that often. Because the question is, are you going to enter the first fight, use 2 or 3 spells, and go, oh man, I need now 8 hours of rest.
Guys, I need to take a bet.
We need to take a day. I need to snooze on my spell book here. So that's my one issue is they said, yes, you should be using spells a lot, but then here's not the many times you can use it because you're just innately limited by only have a few spell slots.
Yeah.
So it seems like they were going to add some mechanic that either would boost it, or they would add a mechanic to give you another avenue of casting spells. Like I know that the wizard has an ability once a day to drain their focus and they get a spell back.
Yeah.
Right. But I was thinking maybe they would add some sort of like mechanic where they like the Magus could do that more often through combat, or they would have some sort of combat trick they could do to siphon energy off of somewhere, RP, and to be able to cast more spells, but they still use this concept of you only get your max level spells. Which you don't lose all your low level. So even though I picked the first level spell, it doesn't mean I lose the first level spell, but I had then cast it at a high level slot. So if I'm 20th level, right, I still have Shock and Grasp, which is the iconic spell that you used in first edition. Right? I still have Shock and Grasp. So I Shock and Grasp in a 9th level spell slot, which boosts the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Right. Or I could decide to cast a 9th level spell, which, take your pick. But in essence, you still only have 4 spells. So that can go through pretty quick. And especially if you're trying to use some of these feats that give you benefits for doing it, which don't count when you're using focus and cantrips.
So, okay.
So that's where it feels a little short because like you want me to cast spells, but then you don't give me the spells to cast.
But then you don't give me the options to cast spells.
Yeah.
You're just saying, cast some spells. And I'm like, sure, I'll cast some spells. And then you're like, but you don't get all the spells. And you're like, what?
Yeah, I will say one thing. Like, there are certain feats that I go, why is this feat so high? Let's see. All right, so maybe other people get things at 6th level that do about this much damage, but this is Energized Strikes.
Yeah,
you cast a spell with one of these traits. It's acid, cold, fire, electric, or sonic. Okay, so that could be a cantrip. And I think that's the reason why they made this way. This technically can be a cantrip.
Okay.
You energize your weapon you're wielding for a minute. So this lasts for 10 rounds. You deal 1 point of damage per weapon die extra. So if my weapon is a d6, it does 1 extra point of damage. If it does 2d6, it does 2 points of damage. The damage matches whatever spell I'm using to trigger this.
Okay.
It's a 6th level feat to get 1 to 4 points of damage on my weapon. It just doesn't feel good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You're looking at it and you're like, where's my return?
Yeah, because I'm yet again, like I said, if it said like use a spell, like almost like how the two-handed.
Yeah.
Right. It's if you're casting a spell, a cantrip, you get based on the level of spell. So if I'm 10th level and I cast a cantrip, that's a fire cantrip.
Yeah.
And I get 5 points, or if I get a certain number of damage based on like, it's a cantrip, you get 1 dice
extra
per the cantrip because it's a cantrip. Doesn't matter how high level it is, you can be 20th level, you're still going to get 1 point of damage per dice.
Yeah.
But if you dump a spell, maybe it doubles it or maybe it does something cool. It gives it an extra effect. That would then entice me to cast a spell slot and get an extra benefit. But when I cast a cantrip, I'm still getting value. But only getting 1 point, even if I'm dumping a 9th level spell slot, 1 point per weapon die.
It
just doesn't feel good.
Yeah, it doesn't help. You're like, why? So I obviously I haven't really looked into the Magus because you're playing it, but I have a weird question, right? So in first edition, obviously we're comparing apples to oranges again.
Yeah.
But in first edition, they had a lot of spell stuff where like you could use your Arcane Pool to give your weapon Keen or Vorpal and stuff like that. Did they keep stuff like that in this, or
that they all put that into the focus spells?
Got it.
So, like I said, everyone gets the Magus Potency, which is basically a one spendable focus point. It's a one action spell. Weapon you're wielding becomes magical. And then it goes from +1. So basically you get the benefit of a +1 potency rune. So it gets +1 attack.
Okay.
As you get higher and higher level,
changes.
You get, it gets +1 striking, +2 striking, +2 greater striking. No, and then it skips to +3 greater striking.
Okay.
So it gets just more and more. So it's just, that one only deals with the potency runes and striking runes. It just kind of makes your weapon better and better without having to pay gold. So you just kind of innately have it. So in essence, at first level, you're getting a magic weapon, which is kind of cool.
That's pretty powerful.
And really, it's the only thing you can use focus spells on anyway at first level. So you're going to use it once a fight. So you're going to get that innately. So that's good. So in essence, even though you're only regular trained attack, in essence, you're like getting a +1 that other people don't get.
Yeah, which is really dope.
Good.
No.
Well, not everything about this is suspect. It's just some of the things just don't line up. There's a feat you can take, and I have to check what level you get it at. But you get an extra focus point, and you get the runic impressions focus spell.
Okay.
When you cast a spell, you choose one of these runes, and it has a list of like corrosive, flaming, frost, ghost touch. There's a whole bunch.
All the known.
Okay, yeah. So and it gives the weapon that rune temporarily. I think it lasts for a minute. Yeah, it does last for a minute. Oh, so the weapon has to be able to accept the rune normally.
Well, yeah, like
it still follows the normal rules for runes. So it actually effectively gives it the rune temporarily. So it still has to hold the rune.
Yeah.
You look at the rule book for rules on how runes work, but you still need room for it. As you get, if you heighten this to 7th level, which you would need to be, I can't remember what, I think you have to be 14th for it to be 7, right?
Yeah, I think so.
You can add it opens up, it adds Keen and the greater versions of a bunch of runes.
Okay.
Right. So still, it's one action and it's a focus, so you always have it.
Yeah.
So at some point, you're going to buy a magic weapon, so maybe you don't need to use
that
the initial free one. So then you're using that to use this to get, oh man, these things are vulnerable to cold. Whoosh, cold.
Now I got cold.
Yeah. So I can see where they're pulling from the old one. And I go, oh, wouldn't it be cool if they pulled this move too? So
yeah,
obviously we're all looking for it. And so it's not like they're not looking at the old stuff. So sometimes I go, maybe they thought of that and they ran into a problem. Or they thought of that and maybe it was too powerful. Or maybe they're trying to build it from the bottom up and say, okay, we're going to slowly increase stuff we're going to add because they don't want it to go up. Well, I'm just going to negate 5 classes now.
Doggone. Who needs them?
So there's that. It's not that I think they did a bad job. I just think it needs time to cook.
Okay. Again, it is the playtest. I believe they are cooking. I feel that like what we're going to see from Magus is, again, like I said, I hope it doesn't become a niche class where I also feel that it's the first class that's a hybrid class. Because you can argue like, oh, well, Oracle's a hybrid. It's really not. I kind of call it a better bard. It's charisma based. But bard does get that inspiration stuff. The Magus is to caster martial. I feel the Magus would have come out as an archetype and not so much as a class. And I know that's like blasphemy, but I feel like it probably could have been an archetype until, like, obviously looking at it from the lens of a playtest, I feel like it could have been an archetype, because it doesn't, for me, it doesn't shine as a class like the other ones do.
Yeah, and the one thing that I was going to harken back to with the other options you get, right?
Yeah.
So even taking like Barbarian, because it's one of the most familiar with. There's a lot of things that deal damage or indicate how you deal damage or let you get into deal damage or do other stuff in combat.
Yeah.
But there are other feats, and there are a few of them that either give you something to do that isn't about dealing damage. Maybe some of it's like defensive, and some of it's just like you get a climb speed.
Yeah.
Right. You just while you're raging, you get a climb speed and you make athletics checks easier. Yeah. Or so you can jump around and leap around like you're a crazy leaping barbarian. That, for the most part, is missing from this. And I think that's one thing they haven't added in the niche utility things. It's almost all about hitting with your weapon, dealing or casting magic.
I mean, even talking about the barbarian, they have that if you go to Dragon Bloodline, they just added in a few new things where one of them is Dragon Arrogance, and you literally, as you're raging, you get +2 to certain saves because you're just arrogant. And I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever heard. Like, it's so on par for being a dragon, right? And the totems and stuff like that. And I feel the Magus doesn't have that, like you said.
I think that will come later. But I think most people that Paizo's thought process was, people going to play this, people going to jump into combat, so we need to be ready for them. Yeah. And the niche stuff, we'll get to that later. Yeah. And we'll also clean up some stuff because some of the, like you said, some of the one of the combat moves is really just not, it's not designed to be balanced with the other two. No. And then you get some of these feats where it increases, like the slide casting. We have the improvement to the slide casting. There's an improvement to the hit points you get from the 2-weapon wielder. So there are increases, but there are, at certain levels, there are clear choices of which one's better. Yeah. And there are certain questions like, why would I ever pick X over Y? I'll give a for instance, for that level that I said, that where you cast a spell and you get +1 damage based on how many dice you use in your weapon. Yeah. That's okay. Right? Like I said, so here's the thing, is like at 6th level, when you use your Magus move, you're actually getting striking. So you're getting extra dice. So maybe that's where they're also adding it in. So maybe it's already 2 extra damage per dice. Yeah, you're getting a little more. So you're getting a little bit more. Okay. But the other 2 feats, one of them is you get the countermeasures focus spell and a focus point. So if you're targeted by a spell or someone you're in the area of effect of a spell, you can immediately increase your AC by 2, add your saving throws, and gain resistance 5 against the spell's damage. What? For a focus point reaction. It's really good. That's really powerful. As you heighten it, which is a focus spell, half your level. Okay. The resistance, so you remember resistance 5 against the damage. And the resistance increases by 2 per level. So at high levels, that's a lot of damage off of the spell. Yeah. So that's I can see that as a really solid option. What I want, so once a battle basically, or actually twice a battle, once you pick this one, you could do up to twice. Twice a battle, I can ignore, because the 2 AC may be enough to think that it just misses you. Yeah. Or even if it does hit you, you're getting increased on your saves. So you're going to save, you're going to take half damage a lot of, a good portion of the time. Yeah. And you're going to take less damage again because you're resistant to it. That's a really good move. The other really good option is Martial Caster. You gain 2 first level spell slots, which you can only prepare certain spells in it. Okay. As you level up. Okay. And then so it first starts at, when you take the feat, you get 2 first level spells. Okay. And then those 2 shift to 2nd level as you gain more levels, shifts to 3rd, and then shifts to 4th. And then it increases what spells you can cast in those slots. Oh. Yeah, so you're getting 2 free spells, and as you level up, the spells get more, the slots increase in power. The slots get better. Yeah, so when you're able to cast 6 level spells, the free slots turn to 4th level spell slots, and you get fly and freedom of movement that you can put in them.
Wow, that's.
But you could also get resist energy, spider climb, and water breathing, and a whole bunch of other. It's like this is what I would want as mainline.
Yeah, that should be the focus of their stuff.
Yeah. So imagine having Martial Caster as their baseline, and depending on which martial moveset, ranged, two-hander, single-hander, or monk style, it changed what spells you could put in there.
That would be cool.
That would be kind of interesting. So where it would more focus in on, okay, well, the one-hander who slides around is more focused on moving around so they get freedom of movement and fly. Right. So, but the two-hander guy is going to get like bark skin, and he's going to get
stuff to buff himself.
Stuff and buff himself or do more damage, or maybe more accurate.
Yeah.
The ranged person's going to get, different moves. So they each get 2 more spells to cast, which then I think would fill up the gap of spells and give them buffing moves that they wouldn't feel bad putting in an actual spell slot.
Yeah.
So something like that. I think that could be a baseline. I don't think that would be too overpowered.
No, that shouldn't be too overpowered. I think that.
I would pick this over getting +1 damage.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
That's like anything that gives you bonuses to saves or to AC changes this game because of the 10 over, 10 under.
Yeah.
That like, oh, I got a 19 and your character 19. Oh, I got a 29, right? Because monsters do always hit harder, right?
Yeah.
So, I got a 29, and you're like, damn, that's 10 over my eye reaction.
Yeah.
Well, okay, what does that do? Oh, I got 2 AC, so I'm at a 20. I still hit you. Yeah, but now it's not a crit.
It's not a crit. Plus now I'm resistant to it.
Now now I'm resistant. So, man. And then all of a sudden, that changes the game. That changes.
Yeah. So I would have a hard time picking between Martial Caster and Spell Countermeasures because they're both good. Spell Countermeasures gives me more utility. Oh, sorry. Martial Caster gives me more utility to do stuff.
Yeah.
Spell Countermeasures keeps me alive.
Yo,
so
being alive is 95% of this game.
Yeah, no. So, but they're both good.
Yeah.
Right. And those are both on I would say on equal level because, and then you look at when I cast a spell, my spells like, I get +1 or +2 damage on my swing.
Yeah.
And one of the spells you get is freaking Mage Armor. So if you're playing a Strength caster, but you don't have armor, boom, you just get Mage Armor.
That's so
which
powerful.
Increases your saves.
Yeah.
So I think that some of the stuff they put in here as feats could definitely be put mainline in and tweaked because, obviously, like I said, you don't ever want to negate a class that exists.
Yeah.
But you also have to say, why would I pick Magus over a dedication combination?
Yeah. Why am I playing Magus when I could be a better fighter, martial arcane caster
with a little bit of magic?
Yeah.
Or a wizard with a little bit of fighter.
Yeah. And also, I mean, what was that thing where you have to roll 2 dice to hit with the spell? So not only do you have to roll to hit, you also have to roll to hit with the spell. Yeah, so that's like I didn't want to go through like the whole spell text, but basically the way the striking spell move works is it's a once around thing, and you cast a spell. The spell doesn't actually go anywhere. You infuse it into part of your body or your weapon. Then you have until the end of your next turn when you hit somebody, so you can miss and still hit somebody later with the spell.
Yeah. So with your melee attack. With your strike. So if I charge up my spell this turn and I swing you with my last action and I miss, the spell's still there. I didn't lose it. Yeah, you still it goes away at the end of my next turn. So, so if I swing and hit you, I do damage to my weapon and the spell goes off. If the spell requires a save, they have to roll the save immediately. If the spell requires an attack, then I roll the attack immediately. But this doesn't include map at all. So I roll my to hit, I hit you, I roll my spell to hit, I hit or miss you. If my to hit with my weapon is a crit, my spell to hit, whatever I roll is one step better. So if say I roll to hit you and I crit with a strike, and then my shocking grasp or burning hands or whatever spell I can put in my weapon, right? It says I have to roll an attack. So I roll and I miss. on the attack. I roll a 13 and your AC is 15. So even though I failed, it's one step better because I crit with the weapon. It's a hit now. If it's a hit, it's a crit. If it's crit fail, it's a regular failure.
Okay.
Same thing on the other side. If they're rolling a save, it's one step worse for them.
Okay.
So if they roll a crit success, it's only a success. If they roll a success, it's still a failure.
Got it.
So that's what critting does for
the class.
You as a magus. You hit trying to crit, and it affects your magic in some way.
That's not so bad.
It's not so bad, but it's a little clunky having to roll all the dice.
That's
and
a lot
load
of
it all in one turn.
Yeah. It's a lot of rolling.
It's a lot of rolling. So I go, okay, well now I have to know what my weapon damage is, and then I have to go, okay, well my spell hit, what they saved, but I crit, so that it's got to push it back up, and it's a lot of dice and number manipulation.
Yeah, all at once.
Especially for newer players, even players who played before.
Yeah,
this is a lot to put on a player.
Yeah, especially now. Again, speaking in, if you're listening to this in the far-flung future, we're in a pandemic, so a lot of people are playing via online simulators, and I know they're never 100% easy, right? Like you could get good at using it, but not all your players are going to be as expertise as you. So having to constantly keep rolling things is a lot. Obviously, when the full class comes out, I'm sure people are going to dive right in to get those classes out there. But again, that comes into play, right? Like I need to be able to roll all this stuff all at the same time and not have a problem.
Yeah.
Oh, now I'm having a problem.
And maybe they felt it was too powerful. The way it used to work in first edition was you rolled, you hit with everything.
Yeah.
And in the prior game, you couldn't use spells that required saves. It was just things that you would normally attack with. So you would get the attack along with the spell.
I'm cool with that. I'm okay with that.
I didn't think that was a bad thing, but...
Me neither. I'm cool with that.
So I understand what they're trying to do. It's still a little clunky to have all that happen in one turn.
Yeah. I get that. I understand that too. Like I understand them trying to work it out and make it feasible so that everyone can play and you sit down and you could just go. I think, again, like we've been saying, this is a bit of an advanced class currently.
Yeah, an advanced class that is not near done.
No.
And that I think that's the other side is like when I see things done like the swashbuckling and go, oh man, that was almost done and it was ready to go and there was only a couple of tweaks they made.
Yeah.
And then I see this and it's a class that I'm the most excited about.
Yeah.
And then I go, oh, this is good. I see potential, but trying to play it in a full-blown campaign, I just don't think it has longevity in that way because of the missing options and the clunkiness, which they may, yet again, they may keep it the way it is. They may change it. They may completely revamp the strike system, the spell strike system.
Oh, I'm 100% sure that's going to get revamped. I wanted to wait till the playtest was over because, like, let's say someone listens to this and they're like, damn, I wanted to play it, but it sounds terrible. Just understand, yes, we understand that it's terrible, but you should play it understanding that, like, this isn't the real final product.
Yeah.
Play it in mind knowing that it's definitely not the final product and you're going to get something way better. Paizo is going to do what they do, and they're going to release a awesome product.
They know how important Magus and Summoner are.
Oh yeah,
and these are classes that people who from first edition are itching to play. These are two very iconic, either hybrid or advanced classes that came out after the game's launch.
So from all of us here at Nothing Ventured, Nothing Gained, I hope you enjoyed watching me and Steve talk through our playtest of the Magus for Secrets of Magic. And you can pick this book up in July 2021, the Secrets of Magic hardbound book. Hopefully this review, right, Steve? You'd call it a review?
Yeah, review, yeah.
A review. Hopefully this review inspired you to go out and playtest your own Magus. Also, keep an ear out. We're going to be doing a quick review of the Summoner coming up. So from all of us here at Nothing Ventured, Nothing Gained, I want to say thank you and good night. Good night.
Good night, everybody.